Just before listening into the podcast today, there's just something I'd like you guys to take note of really. It's that because of the recent outbreak of the coronavirus in India, I just want to ensure that everyone stays home, stays safe, and is taking good care of themselves. Another thing I'd like to focus on here, which I think more of the traditional media isn't particularly honing in on, is the fact that people, even if people are isolating at home or are alone and aren't being able to venture out, do try to ensure that you are able to get, let's say, an hour or 40 minutes, 45 minutes of regular exercise every day. I think that's really, really important and something that people aren't really focusing in on. Another thing is that, so I mentioned exercise, but the same thing applies to diet and your sleep, really. I mean, if you can get these three things in condition, I think it will put you in a much better position to be fighting the virus. So, yeah, that's something I'd like to do, just mention out there before starting off here today. And additionally, obviously, don't have to take my word for it. There are so many guidelines that have been put out by the WHO and the respective governments that this video goes out to. So do keep in mind those as well and do comply by those. And yeah, together we should be able to really fight this and come out of this much stronger and having gone into it really. So, my podcast here today is my conversation with Vidai Vedya. She's the founder and CEO of Women in Sport India. This is the second time on the podcast, and I had a really fascinating conversation with her about women in football, in sports rather, but also how the dynamic is shifting and how society is being more accepting, let's say, of women participating in these sorts of sporting activities and what have you. I mean, I really enjoyed my conversation the first time she was on, but I think that conversation was more about her trajectory in sport and those sorts of things. Today we touched upon a little more broader philosophical questions that I generally tend to ask my guests. So hey, if that's something you guys are into, do tune in. And yeah, I'll waste no more of your time. Hey Viday, welcome to the All Walks of Life podcast. So it's the second time you're on here now. So how does that feel like?
It's always great to be back. I'm always comfortable talking to you, and I enjoyed our last podcast. So I'm happy to be back. I'm looking forward to our conversation for sure.
Yeah, so just for the viewers and the listeners, a little bit. The last time we spoke, it was pretty much in the introductory phases of the pandemic. So it's been almost a year. We broke off for a bit in terms of we started back going into work and things like that. And we've sort of had a lockdown in certain states now here in India. So how have you almost dealt with it as an individual, but also because you've been working with your company and the other ventures that you do have? So how have you almost taken to it?
Well, pandemic, of course, and especially 2020 has been a tough period for everybody, and not just sports industry, but everybody who has been in India, outside India, for the world entirely. So uh, I have been in the same boat, of course. My company turned one this March. Yeah, I'm happy about that. It's my company is a 1 year old kid now. But 2020 hasn't been easy. But like most of us, I've been trying to do my best during the lockdown period when we were all locked inside our houses. And one good thing that has happened to me is because of the pandemic, almost everybody who I wanted to connect with were free. So I made the most of it, and I tried to connect with everybody who works in sports industry, and especially in terms of growing my community. I've been trying hard to do that as well during the pandemic, and I'm happy to say that it's been a quite a journey for sure. And I'm really looking forward to what comes next with Women in Sport India for sure.
So you touched upon this aspect of being able to network with people, interacting with them. Understanding that most people would have a little more time on their hands because they'd probably be at home or things like that. So how has that been? Because you mentioned that your company is still in its introductory phase, is still a year old in that sense. So,
Yeah.
so do you almost see it as an investment in the sense that it's it's probably a blessing in disguise because you almost get to interact with these people early on, because I know I was going through your stuff. You've also had several mentors in the sports industry and outside who have come in and talked to you, basically given you advice in that sense. So has it almost been good in that way because you've sort of understood what it actually takes to be full time in the business and actually be there in the long term, even though you haven't, let's say, established yourself as yet in the industry?
There are two aspects of looking at it, right? I have been in sports industry for almost 7 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
And one good thing that happened over that 7 years, apart from, of course, a lot of other things that happened, but one thing that I mean, suggest everybody does in sports industry is networking. In those last 7 years, I did my best to connect with who's who
Hmm.
in sports industry, and that has helped me a lot when I registered my company. um, I come with a lot of baggage already, and a good kind of baggage, not bad kind of baggage. So uh, while setting up the company, my network has helped me a lot. So when we are talking about approaching the mentors, developing the programs, seeking advice in terms of what kind of steps I should take as a company owner. My network and the people who are constantly around me have helped me a lot. The prominent people in sports industry have always been there because I've taken the time and effort to make sure that I stay connected with them, which I think we all should do.
Hmm.
Whoever wishes to work in sports industry, I think that is the rule of thumb. You should know people in sports industry. It's a very small field. It's a very closed community, and you should take time and effort to understand and know people and stay connected with them. So that has helped me a lot. In terms of how the company is developing, of course, working for somebody and being an owner of a company are two different things. There are decisions that you have to make which you wouldn't otherwise, right? And then there are situations where when you don't know what to do, you want to seek out partnerships, but you don't know who to talk to or what to talk to. Um, at the same time, you have to also think about, is this person taking advantage of me? Is this person taking advantage of the brand that I'm trying to build, because it's a new brand? So all these things are very important and very new to somebody who's starting something on their own. But like I said, the people around me and my advisors and mentors have always been there, and they have always had their best interest at heart. So in that sense, I've been blessed. So always, like, whenever I have any doubt, any question, I am able to pick up a phone and call all these advisors and mentors,
Yeah.
and I have always received answer, and I've always received help. So it's new, of course. In terms of developing business, 2020 hasn't been a big help because all the businesses, were at halt.
Hmm.
So 2021, in a sense, has been i- my first year of business,
Yeah.
if we can call it. So there are a lot of things that I'm discovering for the first time, but so far so good.
So when you touch upon networking, because often many business professionals talk about it, not just in sport, but any industry for that matter. So, like, what is your process of networking in that sense, if I may ask you? Because people almost they have different ways of networking. People, let's say, do it through social media, through LinkedIn, and those sorts of platforms. Some people go to these sorts of events where they get to network. So, do you have a certain way of networking? Also, it could also be with like how you actually frame the message that you're trying to put forward, because what we also must understand is that these advisors, these mentors who we are speaking to, often have so many requests that come into them, right? So, like, how do they almost then filter to say that, okay, this person is genuine and probably requires help, or I could probably do with helping this person? So how is that process like? What is your thinking there?
One principle, or networking principle, that I follow, and I've followed it for a while, is never network when you need them.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
should always network with people when you don't need them,
Right.
right? because when you need a job, or when you need an internship, or when you need an advice or opinion or direction, um, that is when you usually reach out to them. And then these high level people, they are very busy, right?
Yeah.
The people who are at the top of the food chain in sports industry, they are extremely busy. They don't have time. So when you only reach out to them when you need something, it's you're bound to get ignored,
Hmm.
because they are like, you know eh, this
Who are
person
you?
only, yeah, no, and this person only messages me
Right. Yeah.
when, or calls me when he or she needs something.
Hmm.
That's not a very good impression to make. So one principle that I always follow is network when you don't need people.
Hmm.
Right? That's, yeah, it's a very, and I tell this to my sister also. She's in a different field, but for this rule is applicable to any field. And start small, right? Start with, for example, if you're doing a sports management course, your first network is your classmates.
Hmm.
Then the secondary network is somebody your classmate knows. And
Hmm.
then tertiary network is, then that's how you build your network. It takes a lot of time. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen in a year or 2 years. It took me almost 7 years to build a strong network in sports industry. And networking is about creating relationships with people. And I believe in informal a relationship with
Yeah.
everybody.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. But like I was saying, I believe in informal networking. I would like to pursue that. And
Hmm.
if somebody is connecting with me informally, I would rather opt for that option rather than exchanging business cards and connecting with uh, each other over email. Of course, if it is a business deal, it has to be over an email. But if you are just connecting with a person one to one because you're curious about the person, then informal networking is fine. The second thing that I always follow is, if I see somebody doing something amazing, whether it's about sports or about something else, I always get in touch with that person.
Hmm.
I'm very curious person, so I am always looking for something to you know um how should I put it, like something to motivate me to, or
To understand
provide
something
that
new that's
spark.
happening. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
provide that spark. And I always am looking for that, so it doesn't matter whether you're in sports or not. I would,
Hmm.
yeah, I would go and, I would reach out the person, and I would talk to them, understand what they're doing, if they're doing something different. You can always learn from everybody around you. So
For sure. For sure.
those are the two things that I do. But coming to your point about how one should approach somebody that they want to get in touch with, is use professional platforms. I use LinkedIn uh, quite quite well. I'm always active on LinkedIn, and many of these professionals, sports professionals especially, are very much active on LinkedIn. So use those platforms to get in touch with them. Don't directly ask them for jobs and internships. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It doesn't bode well. If people want somebody, or if people are hiring somebody, they would post it on their social
Hmm.
media,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
They usually do. So then it's right time for you to get in touch with the person about a particular job post,
Or
or
go through the process
internships.
of applying through their portals or what have
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But before that, just send them an email or a
Hmm. Hmm.
message
Hmm.
saying, oh, I found what you're doing very interesting, and I would like to set up a 15-minute call
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
understand what you're doing. And that has, some people have done that with me, and I have
Hmm.
been very impressed, because usually I help people, everybody and anybody who messages me on LinkedIn, asks me question, I make a point to reply.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it is a message asking me, do you have a vacancy, then I don't have a vacancy, I don't have an answer
Yeah.
for you, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful of these things. So yeah, I mean, that would be my advice to people who want to network.
Right. So, like, but maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, but like, don't you feel that when you are approaching these people, let's say, even if it's something to say, to even congratulate them on the work they're doing, or you're interested in the sort of work they're doing, and maybe you want to connect in the near future, or even set up a 15-minute call for that matter, I think you also
Hmm.
have to understand that you may not always get a reply, because who are you to get a reply, if that makes sense, because because they get so many sorts of messages from people. So you shouldn't be disheartened if you don't get a reply. Obviously it's great if you do get a reply, but I think that's also something that people have to consider, because what often happens, and this is at least from what I've seen, is that if they send, let's say, so many cold emails or so many cold messages to these people, and then they don't get replies from these people, they think that, oh, maybe they sort of start having opinions about the particular person, which I don't particularly agree with.
Yeah, I agree with you. You never know what is happening
Yeah.
in a person's life,
Yeah.
um, especially if they are at a level where they have to make a decision for an entire company,
Hmm. Hmm.
or a team, for that matter. The responsibility increases that much, so they are busy with what is happening around them.
Yeah.
They sometimes they hardly get a chance to go through the mails,
Yeah.
or messages. Sometimes you get replies, but it's like in a month's time or something
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that, because they are very busy. So we have to also understand that this could be the case. There are always two sides to a coin, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So we have to, like you said, we should not get disheartened because somebody doesn't reply.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, you have to, when you're just starting, uh, I remember I had to message like 100 people to get a
Yeah.
single reply.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah. Yeah.
ratio.
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens to everybody and anybody,
Hmm.
so that's, you have to follow that, and eventually in due time you will realize that you have built a good network.
Hmm.
If you don't get discouraged, that is, you
Yeah.
have to keep trying. But yeah, you are absolutely right. There are always two sides to a coin, so we have to be
Vidima, this,
mindful of that
yeah,
too.
I mean, there's something similar I heard with. So I had Arjun Pandit on my podcast, who's a famous sports broadcaster and presenter. So he also mentioned. So I guess you could connect it in the conversation we are having right now, but even if it's a slightly different. So he says that your role as a journalist, as a podcaster, as a presenter, is that when you're asking someone a question, let's say if I'm posing a question to you,
Hmm.
it's not your duty to give me an answer back, if that makes sense. Like, I've given you a question, so you can choose to answer back, or you could choose to just ignore, or just not answer back, which is also something that people like haven't taken to, like they don't often consider that, which is something, yeah, that's totally right, and that's something even I hadn't considered for the most part. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a learning experience. It's a good thing that you are doing these interviews and you are conversating with a lot of people who have been in the industry for a while. You learn a lot of things from them, and I'm learning too.
Mhm.
I see these people. That's the reason why I always connect with people. I am always replying, because each and every person I am adding to my network, whether
Hmm.
he or she is at the top level or just starting, I am adding that person to my network, because then I will benefit from it
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
So you should not discount anybody in the
Mhm.
sports industry. And that is the advice for people who have reached the top,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we are talking about people who are just new and who are trying to get in touch with people at the top, we also have to make sure that if you reach at the top, don't forget that you were at the ground level one
Mm.
point of time, right? So
Yeah.
you understand what they are going through. So that's what I keep in mind always.
Hmm.
I was at that level. I just started, and I would have loved if somebody had replied back to me. So that's, keeping that in mind, I always reply to people.
S-
I
Yeah.
make sure that um
So even if you are at the top, let's say,
so something that often goes about in sport, and I think this is relevant in other industries as well, that you can't become a dinosaur. And what you mean by that is you can't stick to your old ways of looking at things, your old technologies or whatever. You almost have to keep
Hmm.
adapting with everything, really. And that's let's say a positive and a negative for you starting off. So for example, if you are a youngster starting off who's just graduated and what have you, and you, let's say, ping a message to one of these people who are established in the industry and are doing well for themselves, maybe they, so for example, if you're talking in a sport context, maybe you are, let's say, a computer science graduate or data science graduate, and you know a little bit about how to
Hmm.
construct data models which could help, let's say, a manager in picking players in the transfer market or something of that sort. Maybe that's something
Yeah.
the person who has been working in sport even hasn't considered, because let's say data analysis wasn't so prevalent back in the day. So
Yeah.
that's just one example of how you often you can learn anything from anybody, right? You just have to be open to accepting ideas, which is what you're saying as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the other things that I have observed, which I would love to bring to everybody's notice, is each industry leader has their own way of communication, right? So some of my mentors strictly use email addresses,
Hmm.
and they do reply if you write to them over an email. But at the same time, if you write to them on Instagram or Facebook, they won't, because they have
Yeah.
their own way of communicating with people, in a professional manner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I reply to people anywhere, everywhere. So so
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about myself, but some of the people who prefer, some of them prefer if you write to them on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
It's a professional network. So people who are trying to get in touch with these leaders, we have to first understand how they like to communicate, right? So, and then that will be very, very useful for, if you want to get in touch with somebody,
Yeah.
right? So that is something to keep in mind. But other than that, yeah, I mean, this is something that I've observed. If you are a true leader, you are always learning.
Mhm.
You are trying to get in touch with the young people because they know the trends. And I have observed this, with a lot of top level leaders. They always engage with the young generation. So if they have a chance of having a webinar now, digital platform, using digital platforms, if they get a chance to communicate with the younger generation students, who are graduating from maybe sports management courses or any other courses, if they get a chance to talk to them,
Mhm.
they always opt for it. And it's not necessarily a commercial thing. They just do it because they want to. Most
Understand.
of
Yeah.
them do it because they want to. They love to connect with the younger generation. So
Mhm.
that is something that we can all learn from. Yeah, keep on learning. Otherwise, you become obsolete if
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I don't think I got the opportunity to ask you this last time we spoke, but something I often think about is like just about sport in like a much broader sense. Like, what is sport in that sense? Like, if I may ask you a very silly question, like, what is it to you? Is it why are we so
uh,
invested in it? Like, what is it about sport?
Sports is a way of life. You know, you look at everything and anything around you. There is sports in it, right? From when you were born, the one thing that you do with your parents when you are a baby is you play with them.
Yeah.
You don't, your parents don't naturally open books for you or teach you ABCD when you're 6 months old, right? You
Yeah.
play with your parents. um and even if you're in kindergarten, you play it because it gives you joy, it gives you fun, it's fun. And I think the first thing that we all need to do is look at sports as fun, you
Hmm.
know and I feel like we are slowly shifting from that aspect of sports, shifting from looking at it as fun and relaxing activity to being competitive
Right.
at every and all level. Even if you are playing for your local academy, parents and players have become competitive. Don't,
Mm-hmm.
have fun first
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
foremost, have fun. I think that is what sport is for me. It's a way of life. It teaches you a lot more than physical activities. It teaches you life skills that last long, whatever field you are in later. And I have experienced it myself. The persistence, the patience, the ability to absorb failures, and rise above them. I think I got that because I lost a lot of football matches. We conceded a lot of, and I think sports taught me that. So if you're a player working in a corporate job or any other job, engineering job, medical job, you have that ability to surpass the failures and
Yeah.
tell yourself, I can do it again. I can get up and do it again. So it's a way of life. For
Yeah.
me, at least, sports is a way of life. I don't think I'll be able to live my life without sports. Now that I think about it, it's a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
sort of made a clear distinction between, let's say, play and competition in that sense. But like, do you
Yeah.
feel that yes, we sort of start off playing a sport, let's say, because we like playing it, we enjoy it, we actually like that particular aspect of it. But do you feel that after a certain point, you inevitably have to go into, let's say, competition? And if so, is that bad or is that good in actually honing your skill in that particular sport, let's say? So we could talk
Yeah.
about kids starting off playing tennis, yeah, when they're young, but then them, if they start doing well in that, then maybe participating in regional tournaments, and if they do well in that, national, international tournaments. So is that, obviously, I think you still have to love the sport to play it, even if you are at that particular level. But then is competition then almost a good thing to almost motivate you to keep going?
Competition is always good. um it as long as it does not discourage you from doing what you're doing. um I have said it, even, and it's true for a sports business as well. You're always thinking about who else is
Hmm.
doing what I'm doing, right?
Right.
um is the same thing with playing matches. Who is better than me?
Yeah.
Who is playing as well as I am? And that competition is good if it is encouraging you to think beyond certain limits,
Yeah.
and if it is encouraging you to play better. But according to me, or for me, competition is not good if it is discouraging you from doing what you love.
Right. Right.
That's the way I look at it. So even at a stage where children have to participate in competitive sports, one thing that parents and the players also need to ask themselves is, am I loving this still?
Hmm. Hmm.
Am I enjoying being on court? And to be honest, there are some players that you see on field. you know you look at them and you understand, yeah, this player is still enjoying the game.
Yeah.
And they are still loving it. They are not just doing it because they have brand deals,
Hmm.
or they have they are at the top. They are doing it because they love it. So that's the way I look at it. Yes, competition is good, but you have to make sure that you are still enjoying
Right.
the game as well. And at young age, especially at the age of 6 to 12, the people should, or especially parents should enroll their kids in multi-sport environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I want to emphasize on that, because what happens is you enroll in a particular academy. Let's say, for example, a kid is enrolled in football academy. 2 years down the line, that kid doesn't enjoy that sport.
Hmm.
Then the parent changes that sport and enrolls the kid into tennis, for example. Then 2 years down the line, that kid realizes, no, I don't enjoy tennis.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then this cycle goes on, and it takes away a lot of time from
Right.
your career, from a career aspect, if you want to
Hmm.
go ahead in any sport. So it's better to put them in a multi-sport environment where they can experiment with different sports and then realize, okay, I would love to continue with this particular sport, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that is the way we should look at sports, especially at early age. It's an exploration. You go and check out different, things. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a window shop. You check out
Yeah.
things, and then you pick up one that you like, and
Yeah.
then take it home. So that's the way I look at sports. Yeah,
So,
competition.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we can't avoid it.
So, with this aspect, would you also consider to say that then I know so people make a distinction between, let's say, sport and physical education. I know it's not so prevalent in our country for the most part, but let's say in the Western countries it started to happen. Even there, it's still taking time. So,
Mm.
would you would you also say that, let's say, students going into school then or these sorts of platforms should be given? Um, so I know this sort of happens in China where they're almost taught like principal what's it called, movement skills, if that makes sense. So if you are, let's say, good at running or good at jumping or good at, let's say, squatting or those principal things which are
Mm.
fundamental to movement skills, then they almost base every kid in that classroom to have those skills, or like they put them on platforms where they can actually perform those activities, and through those then they probably suggest to those kids that maybe if you are good at certain skills you could probably go and participate in this sport, because we have identified that you're probably a good sprinter, so maybe you could be good in soccer, football, what have you, or so something of that sort. Do you think that's a good approach at looking at like entangling physical education and sport?
For me, I think every country, is different in different sense. What we may not be able to do what China is doing.
Yeah.
But what one thing that I encourage or support is making professional sports part of the educational curriculum in school itself. The reason why I am saying this is because to get medals at top level, considering there's just only 1% of total population playing sport goes on to become a professional player, we need a larger pool of
Players, yeah.
children playing
Yeah.
at the grassroots level, because only 1% of them is going to go up, and that larger pool is accessible only through school system.
Mhm.
An individual academy or a club or company, for example, like Women in Sport India, cannot do it on their own. It has to be tied up with a school system, and it has to come from the government. I can go to only so many schools,
Yeah.
but government has access to all schools. So it has to be done at a policy level. That has to happen at the top level. So once that happens, we can it depends on how we I'm sure that physical education experts or curriculum development experts will be able to comment on this better. But like I said, each country is different. We need to understand what works for us better. But I
Mhm.
definitely think that we need a larger pool of children playing at grassroots level for us to reach, you know, China level Olympic medals.
Yeah.
Because uh, the government systems are also very different. We have democracy, they have
Yeah.
communism,
Yeah.
so the way our government works or the way our policy development or curriculum development works might be very different. I won't be able to comment on that, of course, because I have not studied how China develops their curriculum or develops their facilities. But we have to keep in mind that two countries are very very different in terms of also biological abilities
Yeah.
or genetic
Yeah.
abilities, right? So we have to figure out what works best for our country or our population, and then bring that system in the
The wider
sporting
populace. Yeah.
culture.
Yeah. So talking about biological differences and those sorts of things, so this
Yeah.
is often a very, let's say, controversial topic in certain areas. What are your thoughts on it though? Like, what do you feel, let's say, boys and girls should be playing together at a younger age, let's say in the grassroots system, or do you feel there should be a distinction made right from the get-go, that this is a pool of crop that boys play, so boys play here, like boys play together, girls play together, or those sorts of things? Or do you want an inclusive environment at the grassroots, and then there's a certain age limit where it comes in. Let's say biological maturity appears, and then you sort of separate into different sorts of age groups or different sorts of biological sexes.
I believe in mixed teams till the age where both girls and boys, especially girls, hit puberty. Girls hit puberty, if I'm correct. Girls hit puberty earlier than the
Yeah,
boys hit
2 years,
puberty, right?
2 years earlier
Right.
to
So
boys. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I think till they hit puberty, I think there has to be a mixed sports environment, and I'll tell you why. Because at till that time, the the physiological
Yeah.
aspects of boys and girls are same. They have the same power, they have the the
Same
same
endurance, same muscle strength. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, muscle, exactly. And it when you hit puberty, that is when it all
There's a difference. Yeah. Yeah.
separates. uh so the girls start developing fat, they start developing breasts, they start developing other aspects of their body. Menstruation is one part of it. As compared to the boys start developing more muscle mass, so they
Yeah.
have physiological advantage or physical advantage in terms of power, in terms of endurance, in terms of strength. So I think that is where there should be a differentiation, because
Hmm.
no two, you can of course have mixed gender games later on also,
Yeah.
where you have uh, you know uh, a team game, is especially when you have mixed gender games. But if you are asking men to compete with women or women to compete with men on an
Yeah. Yeah.
individual level, I don't think we should do that. Every gender, including the third gender,
Yeah.
transgender, LGBTQ, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses.
Hmm.
If you look at men's games, they are more power oriented,
Yeah.
whereas if you look at women's games, they are more skill oriented, right? So I think what we need to do is we need to understand the differences and respect them. We need to understand, okay, men's game is never going to be as same as women's game. There isn't one bad or one good way of doing things. Women's game is not bad and men's game is not good, or
Yeah.
vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
We need, once we understand these differences, I think then people will start respecting and watching women's sports
Yeah.
equally. That's the way I look at it. But from the puberty onwards, I think, for me at least, the games should be different, and they are different. We have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just realize this and respect it. Men's game and women's game is never going to be same.
Hmm. Hmm, hmm.
but
So
but
yeah.
at the same time, we can't say one is bad and the other
Right.
one is good.
No,
So
totally, totally. But
yeah.
so, I mean, maybe I'm not so well versed with this argument, but then there's also this argument that is put forward. Let's say that there should be equal pay. Now, I don't understand what it means. So, for example, are they coming across in this certain scenario that, let's say, if we talk about the ISL for that matter, if we're talking about the football context in India, so are we then saying that the male footballers playing in the ISL should be paid equally to the women's footballers playing in their league, in the women's league in India, or like what's the argument?
uh Equal play, equal pay is the argument. So the way of looking, and a lot of countries are actually supporting this, especially when it comes to national duties
Right. Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
player,
Yeah.
right? We are not talking about private leagues,
Yeah.
or players
Commercial. Yeah.
playing
Yeah.
in a commercial atmosphere or a situation. We are talking about specifically when they have to play for their nation or a
Hmm.
national team,
Hmm.
right? So if, let's say, for example, women are playing for a month and they are playing, let's say, 20 matches in a month, um, and men are also playing similar number of matches on in a month, they should be paid equally,
Right.
because they are playing equally, right?
Hmm.
And that is the argument that many countries, or especially women's teams, are making.
Yeah.
And there has been a lot of disparity in terms of payment,
Hmm.
when men play for their national team and women play for the national team. The other way of looking at it is, I also understand this, by the way, is how much commercial
Yeah, yeah,
value does a team have, or
yeah.
how much brand what do you call it,
How
brand
much sponsors do
engagement.
they bring in? How many
Yeah,
TV
brand
revenue is
engagement,
it?
and
Yeah,
yeah, exactly, broadcasting revenue,
yeah,
everything, all everything comes
exactly. Yeah,
in the
yeah,
picture.
yeah.
but but then we have to also understand is women's teams or women's games are not getting enough views because
Hmm.
in many countries they were essentially barred from playing in the
Yeah,
initial years. And one of the greatest example of this is football
yeah,
in
yeah.
UK. So if you know the story, I think it's quite famous. During World War, women's team played a football match, and there were about 50,000 people coming and playing or watching the match in the stadium. And after that, immediately after that, FA just banned women's football when just it was starting to gain that popularity, that attention, that viewership.
Hmm.
So we never know if they had allowed this to continue, women's sports or women's football might have been bigger than men's football.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah,
We never know. So retrospectively, the reason for women's sports not getting enough commercial attention is it has been suppressed for a longest time. So that is also one way of looking at it. So if you want to encourage women's sports, your way of paying it back is to invest in it
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Because in 5 or hi Ishan, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
my internet is active. There is a thunderstorm.
Oh, okay, okay. Right,
um, but yeah, I don't know where you lost me, but
right. I don't, I don't either. But I guess we can move on to
oh,
to another question or
yeah, yeah,
something of that sort.
yeah,
So,
sure.
another thing, I don't know if I've sort of touched about it in the onset of our conversation, but like how has your brand almost taken to the pandemic, right? Because so you talked about networking, but have there been other such events that you've put forward, or other such deals that you've been able to put forward that let's say that you've done through the pandemic, which have also been, let's say, helpful for for the athletes? Because I also understand that most of the athletes that you probably are in touch with may not have had the facility to go on to, let's say, play right now because of restrictions and all, and those sorts of things. But yeah, what have you guys done since?
So, Women in Sport India is currently working on the leadership development because I believe that we need more leaders in
Yeah,
sports, and
yeah.
they could be athletes, they could be off-field leaders, they could be coaches, referees, anybody who wants to work in sports for that matter. So my primary target through Women in Sport India is to develop this leadership, and we conducted our first mentoring program. I think there's a big gap between what people want to do and the kind of advice that is available.
Yeah.
We were talking about networking, right? So it's not very easy to get in touch with top leaders in sports industry. We were talking about that. So through these mentoring programs, I'm facilitating that connection because the top leaders in sports industry have lot to share
Hmm.
through their experiences, through their knowledge, and there is a gap uh, in terms of how they can do it. They are seeking a platform as well to share whatever they have learned over the years, but they didn't have any platform where they could go and say, okay, I want to help women's sports. uh, but Women in Sport India is thankfully such a platform, and through that we have come up with mentoring programs. um, the first happened in Jan, so December Jan 2020 2021.
Yeah.
We had 16 amazing participants in the first program. The second program is on 5th of June. And then we are also bringing a global sports leadership program, which is a one of a kind program. It's a 40-hour purely decision making upskilling program for athletes, coaches, referees, and women working in sports, particularly those who want to, scale up in some way or the other, or those who want to transition. So that I'm bringing in some awesome people for that program, and I'll be declaring. I'll be declaring. I'm really happy with the people that I'm onboarding, to be honest. Um, so I'll be declaring the mentor soon. But that is something new that I have added this year. And the last one is a marathon program where you get to actually experience and work on live projects with the mentors. And a lot of these women, these athletes, coaches, they all wanted hands-on experience.
Hmm.
So that's what I'm doing through marathon program. It's a 3-month live project based program, where you have to, of course, apply for it, and then the selected people would then get to work on live projects with the mentors.
So they apply
So it's
through
an
your portal.
internship.
They apply through your
Yeah,
website. Yeah.
yeah. For all these programs, you have to apply through our website, which is www.womeninsportindia.com. You will get all the information there about the program also. So feel free to, check it out, and I'm always available.
Yeah. So, so we were talking about, let's say, the history of women in sport and those sorts of things for a little bit, I guess. But like, what do you see the recent trajectories that are happening in, let's say, in our country, for that matter, with the prominence of these women's league in different sports? So, do you see it's a positive? I think it's a positive, right? Like in terms of how far we've come. But like, yeah, what do you make of the current trends?
It's definitely a positive. I remember, I don't know if I shared this with you last time or not, but when I started playing football, there was just one club in
Okay.
my city. But now I see that we have a full-fledged league. Although it needs a lot of structuring, but we do have a full-fledged league, district league, with about 24 teams playing in it, which is a huge scale up compared to one club in a city like Pune. You know, so I'm really happy about that. There are a lot of leagues which are happening throughout the country. Majority metro cities at least have their
Yeah.
own women's league. Karnataka league has, two levels, A and Super, which is
Oh, wow.
amazing. Yeah, it is amazing, and
Mhm.
you should go and watch their matches if you can. And they are just doing fantastic. So lot of changes, lot of women and girls have started participating in sports at a grassroots level. A lot of parents are supporting their daughters as well, so that is a big change for me. I think from a social perspective, not a lot of parents used to, support their daughters. They were scared, okay, if their daughter gets tan, how is she going to marry and stuff like that, but that has changed a lot. Yeah, it's true. But that perspective, especially in tier 2 cities, has changed tremendously, and I'm
Mm.
really really happy about it. I am in touch with a lot of parents. There were two parents part of the first sprint mentoring program. There are two parents part of the second mentoring program as well. So it's a welcome change. And I'm yeah, I mean, women's sports, there are two fields to look out for. One is e-sport, of course, and the second one is women's sports. In upcoming years, you go to any, these consulting companies and check out their report, KPMG's, Deloitte's, and stuff like that. They will tell you women's sports is the upcoming thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, watch out for that field. It's
So,
going to grow in India also.
so you touched about this, let's say, social, I guess, change, if you want to call it. So so looking at it in an Indian context as well. So like certain states, like where I'm based right now, Gurgaon. So like in Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan, these sorts of states where traditionally they wouldn't have been, let's say, so accepting of women participating in these sorts of programs. But now they sort of are, like, with the recent changes that have started to come up. But like,
Hmm.
what is there something you pin it down to? Is there, let's say, a contributing factor to that, or are there a multitude of factors that come into place? Like, have you been able to grasp it? Like,
I haven't actually researched much on it, but at the top of my head, I think the role models that Haryana has created
Yeah.
in terms of wrestling, particularly, right? And it has affected not just wrestling side of it, but in general, women's sports in that region as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Role models can make a lot of difference, and role models based on whom the movies are made on,
Yeah.
they can make even more difference.
Hmm.
So I think it's a good thing, but I think the role models have, and not just in Haryana, Punjab or Delhi, but I think in a lot of other places
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
upcoming women role models have, changed the way we look at women's sports
Hmm.
as well. So I think I will give due credit to, these athletes who have done just amazing at an international level. Uh, Talk about PV Sindhu, Mary
Hmm.
Kom, Sakshi Malik, Fogart sisters, everybody. So yeah,
What
yeah.
do you think?
But yeah, that's what I think.
What do you think it's about, let's say, the media though? Because like, I mean, I still like Chak De India and Dangal, these sorts of movies, especially Chak De India, like that's still so famous. Even though if it's let's say it's talking about, let's say, hockey as their particular sport, but then so many women and even men have drawn inspiration from that particular movie and taken it to their particular sport. Like I mean, this song, if you go to stadiums of even different matches, like if India is playing a cricket match or if there's a football match going on, there's often this song that often comes up, like so many songs from Shakti, the theme song and this sorts of things that do come up. Like the sort of question I'm trying to pose here is that, like, so like, isn't it interesting that even if it's not specific to that particular sport, so for example, if you are a tennis player, but then you've seen that particular movie and you sort of identify through that because you see the hard work that, say, these girls have put in or these boys have put in and they've reached a certain place. So then you understand that, okay, maybe if I do this myself, it comes back to the same role model sort of a thing that you were talking about, that okay, so there are these examples, so what's to say if I don't put in my level best, I'm not going to get there.
Hmm. Mm, yeah, I mean, if I understand your question correctly, ultimately sports is a, genderless, or a particular sportsless kind of field. You can draw inspiration from any other sports.
Yeah, yeah,
If you are a tennis player, if you are a cricket player, if you are, a boxer, you're a badminton player, if something great happens in sports, then it happens in sports
as
altogether.
a whole.
It
Yeah,
doesn't have
yeah.
in a one particular sports. You can draw inspiration from different sports, right? um I mean, there are a lot of players, if you go and talk to them, they have different idols,
Mhm.
from maybe one from their own sport, but there is also another person who they follow who is from another sport, and he or she inspires them,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So I think, yeah, I mean, sports is all inclusive field. It doesn't discriminate.
Yeah.
The term doesn't discriminate, we do. So so yeah, so I mean, if I'm answering it
I don't even know
correctly,
if there was a
that's what
question
I
there. I
think.
was just thinking out loud for the most part.
No, that's
But
fine, but that is what I think, like, there are two ways of looking at it. Sports is, this should be, it is a genderless term. So our, as a sports community, our ultimate goal is it to be sport, not
yeah,
women's sports and
yeah.
men's sports. It needs to be sports, right? So that is one thing, and the other thing is, like I said, it
Discriminate.
doesn't
Yeah,
matter which sport. Yeah, it doesn't matter which sport you played.
right.
Sport as a, very very inspiring, and stories inspire everybody. Sports stories inspire non-sporting people also.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
so
So you touched
so
upon esports and those sorts of matters, and I guess I asked you this earlier on in this conversation of what do you think sport is in that matter. So there's often this conversation that happens in the traditional media right now about, like, what what is sport and what isn't sport, for that matter. Like, so some people, let's say of the newer generation, would consider things like esports to be a sport because people are actually participating, they're playing, and those sorts of things. But like, do you feel that there is a distinction to be drawn in terms of activities and sports, or recreation and sport? So things like yoga, things like, some people would say chess isn't a sport, but I think it's a sport. So like, do you draw a distinction between these things, or how do you think about it?
I mean, I have never really given it a thought. The only thing that I think about is it entertaining?
Hmm.
Because sports ultimately falls under the vertical of entertainment.
Entertainment, yeah.
You know, um, it is of course different than movies or
Hmm.
serials or OTT and stuff like that, but it is ultimately a part of entertainment. So I
Hmm.
feel like if sport competitions or chess competitions, if they are entertaining,
Hmm.
you can call them anything you want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, but I mean, when we are talking about inclusion into Olympics,
Hmm.
then I would say, because esport has been included as like it's being showcased at the
Yeah,
Olympics, right?
yeah,
So this time, so then it becomes a topic of debate.
right,
If
right.
they are conducting individual competitions, their federation is only the body which is involved, then it's not a topic of debate. It's
Hmm.
only when uh, governing bodies like IOC involve them as a
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
sporting events. I don't care. you know to be, yeah, I mean, I haven't given it a lot of thought, but even if IOC includes esport as part of Olympics, I am all for it. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
esports.
yeah.
I love esports, but at the same time, there is an internal debate going on in the esport field, whether games like PUBG is
Right.
esports. So that is where then I become involved, because I don't think that PUBG is an esport.
Okay.
FIFA, sports like FIFA, where you have to actually play a match, or a sport. NBA is coming up with
Hmm. Yeah,
their version
yeah.
of esport. So I think that is an esport. But if you talk about
Right.
PUBG, it's really really not. It doesn't. You know, I don't know what to say, but I think I would get involved in that debate more than the
Hmm.
the one that you think
But
about.
that's
But
but that's
yeah,
as fascinating a debate as this one, though, isn't it? Because even with things like PUBG or Fortnite, those people have really large fan followings, and like especially with, I don't, so I'm not so well versed with the esports community, but I think Fortnite is an esport. I'm not sure, but like the money some of the top esports players make, I think I saw the statistic that the person who won the World Cup for Fortnite or something of that sort made more money playing Fortnite than Roger Federer made playing the Wimbledon in that particular year, which is totally obscene. And additionally, like so there's streaming as well, right, of esports. So the most popular streamer, I'm not sure if he's still the most popular, but Ninja, his name's Ninja. So the
Ninja,
social
I know.
so the social media interactions that Ninja got playing Fortnite and other sorts of esports was much more than Ronaldo got playing football and through his social media, which is so like,
Yeah, but then the distinction is whether you call it an esport or do you call it a video game, or he's a gamer, he's not a player. that's
hmm,
that's the distinction, right? So whether he's playing Fortnite or PUBG or any other video game, it's a video game competition. It's not an esport competition. Esport is the sport you play electronically, right? Or on a
okay,
digital platform. That's the distinction that I make.
okay.
You know, there could be some disputing comments on
Yeah.
this topic, but I feel like, yeah, I mean, I feel like Fortnite and PUBG is not really an esport.
Hmm.
Esport is FIFA, for example, football
Right.
football game.
So it's like a
or any
caricature
other.
of a sport that we already have in a physical form, if that makes sense, is what your argument is.
That's at least that's what I think.
Right.
That at least that's what I think. But I will you know what, I'm going to talk to Lokesh Suji, who is the federation, is the director of our esport federation. I'm going to talk to
Oh,
him and
okay.
ask him
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
he
Actually
considers
understand.
as.
Yeah.
I I mean, it will be a good idea for you to have him on your
Yeah.
podcast. I think it's
Yeah.
a very, very, interesting field that is coming up.
No, for sure. Because
I'm really
Hmm.
looking forward to the showcase of esport at Olympics. I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
there are going to be people who are going to criticize. Okay, this is not esport, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of money in it. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be interesting to have the person on you were talking about, because like, so I don't watch esports that much. I don't watch streams of it, but I know it's very popular. So I have a few younger cousins who were totally fascinated. They watch like 3 4 hour 5 hour long 5 streams of these people playing
my
games.
God.
I can't but I don't know though, because maybe, but then that's what his particular age group is watching though. So maybe that is what's there, because maybe they're moving away from YouTube videos. They're going to streaming, because that's probably a little more intuitive. They can sort of communicate a little more intimately with streamers, because you can see the chats and you can see how they're actually doing at the time.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's fascinating to consider what we consider sport and we don't consider sport though. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
you were so you we were talking about, let's say, these mentors you were bringing on board, and the conversations you've had with them. Like, have there been certain takeaways that you've had with the interactions that you had with these mentors? Let's say some things that they've said, that you probably then thought about twice, and then maybe thought of considering in at Women in Sport India, but even generally of how you look at sport or the world, really.
Yeah, I remember. So during the sprint mentoring programs, I have to attend each and every session, right? So uh couple of the things that they said remained with me, and I think I won't forget them anytime soon. The way I look at sports fitness has changed a lot.
Okay.
My fitness mentor Declan, I remember him saying, women the fitness required for men and women is different,
Yeah.
and we have to look at and plan it differently, because physiologically we are two different things.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you are expecting um, a man to do 50 push-ups, you cannot expect 50 push-ups from
From a
women,
woman.
because they
Yeah.
are physiologically different.
Different.
And
Yeah.
it's not because she's weak, it's just that
A
they are
different physical
different people.
composition. Yeah.
And right, so the one thing that has changed in me is I used to always compare myself or my stamina or endurance or my techniques with a man who was doing 50 push-ups, right,
Right.
with me. And I would strive to do 50 push-ups because he did it, you
Right.
know but now I'm like, no, if I can't do 50 push-ups, I can't do 50 push-ups. It's not physically possible for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we are different people. Biologically and physiologically, we are
Hmm.
different people.
Hmm.
So if I do 50 push-ups, that is a plus.
Yeah.
But if I don't do it, that's not because I'm weak.
Yeah.
So that is the perspective that I had before has changed. The second thing that I remember profoundly, and I also tell this to the people who come and talk to me, is Gayatri Vatak, who is a sports psychology mentor.
Yeah.
In her one of her sessions, she said confusion is a good place to start,
Hmm.
right? And we are always scared about oh, I don't know what to do, my life is finished, I have no aim, I have no goal, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. And we look at it as a failure, but instead of looking at it as a failure, we need to say, okay, I am confused because I want to do something with my life
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, right? So that's what she said. She said confusion is a good way to start or a good place to start, but you have to work towards getting rid of that confusion also.
Hmm.
So those are the two things that I think I won't forget. There are, I think, lots to come. One of the things that Gaurav Sundaraman, he's a sports analyst.
Mhm.
He's also a mentor for sports analysts. And one of the things that he mentioned during his, his sessions is there are two things that you have to, there are actually three things that you have to consider when you are seeking a job. Your job profile, your boss, and your company,
Right.
right? And even if two of these three things are there, you should, go ahead with that job or that opportunity. I think it's a very, very practical advice to give to the people who are listening to him.
So what do you
Because
mean by that? Do you mean that, okay, so of these three things, so you've got a good portfolio in place, you've got a boss who you respect and who you want to work for, and you have a company whose ideals you like and whose direction you like. Is that what you're trying to say?
yeah, yeah. So so that's what he said,
Yeah.
if any two of these things are there,
Mm.
then you should probably, go ahead with that opportunity for sure. And things like these, I know them for a while now, but you always learn from them. You always learn something new from the people that you already know as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it has been an educational experience for me. My mentoring programs have been mentoring me as well, as I take everybody through them. But yeah, of course, I mean, there have been a lot of people who have supported me. Dipti Bopaya of Go Sport is there. Mandar Tamane of Bangalore FC has been there. They have been a great advisor. Mandar sir has been there. um, I have seen him work, so I learn from him a lot when he's taking decisions, because he takes a lot of difficult decisions at CEO level. You have to take a lot of
Yeah.
decisions. So
Yeah.
I've seen him work and I've learned a lot from him. Dipti Bopaya has time and again, given me right advice. She has told me many times branding is very important. You have to concentrate and pay attention to how you build women in sport as a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to make sure you you take an effort towards it also. And she's always messaging me, so they have all been fantastic teachers. And they always advise me when I need it. Yeah.
So something
These are the few incidences that I can share with you.
No, they're
Yeah.
totally great. So something I took away from like this initial bit was that so you mentioned this, right? So you intuitively know. So for example, if there's a mentor who's saying something to you, at the back of your mind that you already know this thing, but it's you've never sort of articulated it well. But that's sort of the role of, let's say, a person
A
who
mentor.
has,
Yeah.
who's a mentor who's thought about these things, because then he or she is then able to put it forward in a manner where you can then understand, right? And I think that's what's more beneficial in terms of knowledge. And I think I've spoken about this a few times on my podcast, is that you understand a particular topic area or a concept is when you're able to articulate that concept, sort of distill it into such a manner that, let's say, a 5-year or a 6-year okay then understand. So it could be the most
Yeah.
complex of scenarios or concepts, but if you're able to, what shows your brilliance and your understanding of the topic is when you can put it forward to a layman, and a layman can then understand what you're trying to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I believe in that.
Yeah.
If you can't explain it in so many words, then you don't understand it yourself.
Yeah.
It's that simple. If you don't know how to word it well, then you yourself are not clear in your mind about what exactly you want to do. And this is the conversation I've had with all these mentors and all my advisors, and they have always asked me one question: what exactly Women in Sport India is?
Yeah.
you know so it made me think about what it is. When I'm putting
Mm.
forth Women in Sport India as a brand, everybody is going to ask me, what is Women in Sport India?
Yeah.
Am I clear enough in my head to explain what Women in Sport India is, So I think having that clarity is something we all should think about. And I think mentors help in that matter. They ask the right questions. They
Yeah,
don't give
yeah.
you answers. They ask the right questions, and that's their job, right? They ask, because nobody can give you answers for
Yeah,
your own
yeah, yeah.
questions, but they can make you think. So I think
Hmm.
one important job of a mentor is to make you think.
Hmm.
And everybody I know, or every mentor who is around me, has done that for me and for the mentees who have been part of the programs as well.
I think
you
I
know
think that's
um
the fundamental job of a mentor. Let's say is because they, as you said,
Absolutely.
right? You don't want to spoon feed you with with their answers. Let's say, but it's for you to sort of navigate your way through the questions that you sort of have, and then come to a conclusion.
Absolutely.
And then yeah.
Absolutely. I think sports, especially in sports or any, like, life is your own journey. Nobody can stand in for you.
Hmm.
You have to, you have to find your own way, and you have to find your own answers. But there are then people who are there, who are just there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's enough sometimes. So yeah, I mean, yeah,
So
it's been
just
a journey. Yeah.
just sticking on to that for a little longer. So so there's this great physicist, Richard Feynman, who said that people know the name of things, but they don't know what they stand for, if that makes sense. So what often happens in society is that, okay, so uh, that's an airplane, but you don't know how it
Hmm.
actually functions. So he gave an
Hmm.
example of how, let's say, he used to go to a park with his father, and his father told him that, see how many birds there are in this in this park, let's say. Most laymen would be able to tell you the names of these birds, but what they wouldn't be able
Hmm.
to tell you is how many times they peck how many times they peck a tree, or when do they actually go and nest their houses or what have you, which is fundamentally more important to understand, if that makes sense. And I do, I
Yeah.
see this everywhere in society, really, because people sort of don't understand the things that that they even talk about or they stand for. So because
Hmm.
everyone starts labeling people, and because that's a very convenient way of going about things, right? So he's an X person, he's a Y person, be it in any context, in politics or
Hmm.
what have you. So yeah, I
Hmm.
think, but as you said, it's about asking those fundamental. So Elon Musk said is the first principle questions. So why do you do anything, if that makes sense? So why do you want to eat? Is it necessary to eat
Hmm.
3 times a day? Is it necessary to start a business? Is it necessary to do all these things, which is something people wouldn't take the time to answer? Oh yeah, just think about, really.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I think, if you know you find the answers to those questions when you start taking bold steps towards your, not a goal, but when you stop caring about what people think, and when you start
Hmm.
following what you want to do,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you fail, you struggle, you come across a wall. I believe that failure defines your personality, and
Hmm.
failure defines what you stand for. And your personality is essentially what you stand for,
Yeah.
your opinions, your perspective of looking at things, right? So when you start failing is when you start getting answers for these questions. If you are afraid to fail, you are never going to find the answers to these questions,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Why do you want to do anything, like Elon Musk said? I don't need to start a business.
Yeah.
you know you don't need to start this podcast,
Yeah.
right? So it's about the choices we make,
Mhm.
or it's about who do we see ourselves as
Yeah.
on our deathbed. I often think about this. What I have achieved. Let's say I am dying, and then you know the first thing that might come in my mind is what I have done
So
in
your
this life.
legacy. So you think about
My
your legacy.
legacy,
Yeah.
my work. Have I been happy? Have I worked towards happiness, or have I been happy working in a field that, that gives me that happiness,
Hmm.
so these are a lot of things that we think about, and as we take decisions, my mom always says, right or wrong, take decisions. you know Whether you're going to fail or you're going to be successful is immaterial. The first step towards success is taking decisions. I remember this. I don't remember who said it. uh, s- uh, s- there was a press conference, and a reporter asked, why do you think so, what is the secret to your success?
Mhm.
Right. So he said, the person who was answering said, successful decisions, you know and the reporter asked him again, so what is the reason behind, those successful decisions? Then the person said, unsuccessful decisions. you know so so the success depends on how many times you fail.
Hmm.
It's a numbers game,
Yeah.
according to me. So yeah, I mean, it's a valid argument, like, right? Why do you do anything? You don't, because in the bigger frame of things, we are just a blip on the
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah.
Not even a
Yeah.
blip. I don't think so. Even if we don't do anything significant, it's not going to matter at all in the
Yeah.
bigger
Yeah.
picture. So then why do we do anything? It's for our own happiness. It's because we want to do something that, that satisfies us.
See, but
It's not
Vidai
for
ma'am,
that big
I
picture.
think, yeah, I think you're totally bang on with the things you are saying though. But it just comes back to the conversation we're having, in the sense that people wouldn't even start thinking about these things though, because I feel that when you start thinking in this sort of chain of thought, the answers come to you, and you sort of identify the things you're doing wrong in your life. It could be the time you're waking up, it could be some things that maybe you're not eating right, you aren't exercising properly, it could be anything. You aren't working on your relationships with your family and friends, or those sorts of things, and that will then tell you to start working on them. And then people are very conformist in the way they live their world, and they wouldn't want to sort of change, because change is difficult, right? At least so I feel. And so they sort of want to stick to their routine, and even if they half-heartedly understand that whatever they are doing may not be the best, they will still go ahead with it because it's working for now, so we might as well.
That's why, not everybody is Elon Musk, right? That's why.
Yeah.
If you have guts to, follow your answers, then you become Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't. And yeah, I mean, people are, right at their own place.
Hmm.
And I think they do what they can. But those people who are not satisfied with, you know doing what they can, and they want to go beyond, they become Elon Musk,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they become, Sachin Tendulkar, or they become, Mary Kom, you
Hmm.
know or they become Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like, um everybody has a capacity to do something amazing, but is there a want to
Hmm.
do
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
amazing? That's the bigger question. If you want to do something amazing, then you do, and then you become something great.
Yeah.
But majority of us don't have that want.
Hmm.
And I love to connect with people who do. Yeah.
But ma'am, don't you
uh,
feel it's also sorry to cut you off, but don't you feel it's also
yeah.
the fact that and this is something I don't particularly agree with, what's happening in certain areas of society, is the fact that people are being told that they're okay the way they are. and and
Mm.
and what that sort of and for the most part people say that, yeah, that's a good thing to say to people, but what they sort of miss out is that then in my opinion at least, that leads to a conformist sort of way of thinking. So yes, I'm okay the way I am, so why do I even need to do the things I'm doing? Or because it, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? So I don't particularly agree with, let's say, that chain of thought. What I do propagate rather is saying that you are good where you are right now, but you could be numerous times better if you, let's say, do these things in the world. If you put your act straight, if you do whatever you're very interested in, and things like that, which is something I don't often see people saying, because often there is, yeah. And additionally, with the speakers that you, with the people you have been mentioning, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and those Mary Com and those sorts of people, let's say on social media or otherwise, they see the light at the end of the tunnel. So they see, okay, Elon Musk is now the richest man in the world and he's created so many companies and so many products and what have you, but they don't see the
Hmm.
struggle that he's gone through, or they don't see the
I
struggle that say
agree.
Mary Com has gone through. So that's another
Yeah.
thing that people all sort of have to, I don't know, understand, or maybe, yeah, take into deliberation when they're talking out loud on social
Yeah,
media,
I
really.
agree. And to be honest, I am at a, I have done not even a fraction of what these
Yeah,
people have
yeah,
done. But
yeah.
I also think that, when people, connect with me, it's very amusing because I've done something different. I'm in a field which is not normal,
Mhm.
and it's amusing. It is aspiring, inspiring, blah blah blah. It is, but it is also amusing. And people come to me saying, oh, I want to do something that you are doing, right? And I often think, do you know the kind of struggles, mental and physical struggles, that I have been through to say so casually that I want to do something that
Hmm.
you are doing? So I completely understand where your thought is coming from. But I feel like, point number one, it's a personal choice whether
Yeah,
you want
yeah.
to do something or not. Do you want to conform to certain framework, that and say, okay, I like the way I am, I don't want
Yeah.
to do anything that I don't need to do? Or do you want to, actually do something that is going to make,
Yeah, yeah.
make changes in the world? That's a personal choice. Secondly, going back to what I'm saying, that's why nobody, not everybody becomes these, these amazing people, because not everybody has the thinking capacity to look beyond the limelight, look
Yeah.
beyond the fame and the, you know whatever, there are only few people who actually see the struggle that went behind that.
Yeah.
So and then there are even lesser number of people who are actually willing to go through that pain.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's fine if there is this fraction of people who don't care. um it's up to us to decide whether we do or not.
Hmm. Hmm.
We are not, to be honest, I am not here to, I don't think you are here either to educate people, or
Oh no.
make sure that they learn something out of it. I think all the adults have that much common sense and that much intellectual ability to, think about themselves and think about what's good for them.
Yeah.
If they are not thinking about it, not my problemo.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think the best we can do is orient ourselves in the best way we find possible, and then it's on others, right? I think that's the only way um you can go about like changing the world. Obviously Gandhi said it, right? Like, be the change you want to be in the world. But I
Yeah,
think that's very true, though. I think it's very true.
and I think there are I feel like there are people like, uh, you and me, who want to actually do something. The only thing that we can do is connect with them.
Yeah,
There is
yeah.
always, there is always your tribe, which you match with.
Yeah,
You want to, and that's like a spark. You
yeah,
know who your tribe is
yeah.
immediately, and you then connect with them, and then you share. So yeah, that's the way I look at things.
Yeah.
Keep it
uh,
simple.
yeah. Vidai ma'am, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation here today as well. Just before going, if I know you read a lot, just like I do, so if there are any
Mm.
book recommendations I could get from your side, it could be from the world of sport, but it could be beyond that as well. Feel free.
I will tell you. There are two things that I am reading right now. There's this book, Live Better, Feel Better. I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
it
I
or
can see it
not.
now.
This is
Yeah, yeah.
so my dad. So my dad had or has a series of Reader's Digest
Okay.
monthly books.
Okay.
And one of those books or one of the supplements that came with one of the monthly books is this, and it has a lot of short stories, 3-page stories, 2-page stories of lesson learned. So I'm reading that. And the other thing, my dad suggested this, so if you know who this guy is, I don't know if you can see it or not,
Oh,
but this
is it
guy
R.K.
is
Narayan?
Common Man. Yes, that's right.
Okay, yeah.
So this guy started a cartoon series called Common Man, and his cartoons were majorly about politics, and then they were about major
Society,
incidences
yeah.
that happened in society and at a global level. So he commented on it through his cartoons, and I'm reading. So I mean, I don't know if you can see it or not, but so it's
Yeah.
this book is a collection of his cartoons since independence.
Oh, wow.
So I'm till the end of it. Till he died, basically.
Right,
Till his
right.
last cartoon. So I'm reading that. It's very mind-boggling to think about. His cartoons are just, they make you think.
They tell a story in
They
themselves. Yeah.
they tell a story, but they also give you perspective about the political situation, and it changed a few things. The way I think about the past
Mhm.
of India, the political situation after independence. That book changed a few things.
But there's so much, sorry to cut you off, but then with his work, I feel there's so much which is still prevalent in society that we see today. So even if he did so many of his comics back in the day, like some of the things he touched about, we're still seeing in the same society we live in currently, with the same things that are happening
Yeah,
on a larger scale.
absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. It is very true. It's very, you know, uh, relevant even
Mhm.
today. I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
his
yeah.
cartoons, but he was just, I go through, his cartoons, and, the, what do you call it? Like a commentary on the
Yeah,
things
yeah, yeah,
that were happening. And I feel like he was a genius.
yeah.
He had the ability to convey something in a line,
Yeah.
which I don't know how many people have actually. I don't. So it's an interesting book. If you get a chance, it's by Penguin Publication, so I think you'll
Right.
be able to
Yeah,
find it on
yeah.
Amazon. But those are the two books that I'm reading. I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of heavy reading,
Right.
that goes on for a while. So I'm sticking to some,
Yeah.
um,
Fair
it's
enough.
not a light reading, but it
Yeah, I
doesn't
get
take a
it.
lot of
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
pages. So I'm sticking to that. But yeah, these two books, if you get a chance, definitely read them.
Will definitely. So just before you go, if there's anything you'd like to plug, feel free. Anything you'd like to suggest to point my listeners, my viewers towards, feel free.
Uh, One of the obvious things that I would love to tell people is use your common sense and stay at home. Don't go out. You don't want to be the reason
Yeah.
for spreading corona. So stay safe. Be with your family members. Help people if
Hmm.
possible in this trying time, because I think the second wave has hit much closer to home than the
Yeah.
first one. So you have to be, very vigilant about that. But other than that, just keep on doing what you're doing. I think this shall pass. Uh, this time shall pass, and then we will have a lot on our hands.
Mhm.
So just stick with it, hang in there, and yeah,
Or-
just stay strong. That's the message I would like to tell everybody.
no,
Just stay safe and stay strong.
I think that's a great place to end. So thank you once again for this wonderful conversation. I hope we can do this sometime again in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.